For 7 years, I devoted myself to making my wife Amanda happy. As an architect, I passed up career opportunities to stay in her preferred city, spent weekends with her family instead of pursuing my own interests, and bent over backward to accommodate her every preference. Then last Thanksgiving, I overheard her laughing with her family in the garden. Poor Winston. He tries so hard, but he cannot please anyone. Her words cut deeper than any knife. That moment changed everything. I finally realized that no matter what I did, it would never be enough for someone who had already decided I was inadequate. Before I tell you how I reclaimed my self-respect, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever felt unappreciated by someone you loved. I met Amanda 8 years ago, at a mutual friend's art gallery, opening in downtown Portland. I was 32, then working at a mid-sized architectural firm, passionate about sustainable design but still somewhat reserved in social settings. Amanda stood out, immediately captivating the room with her confident laugh and easy way of commanding attention. When she approached me to ask about a minimalist sculpture I had been examining, I was surprised and flattered by her interest. "You actually understand this piece," she said, gesturing to the abstract metal form. "Everyone else just pretends to get it." That was Amanda, direct, confident, and somehow making you feel simultaneously special and slightly inadequate. Our conversation flowed easily that night, and by the end of the evening we had exchanged numbers. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. Looking back, I can see how my tendency to please others made me particularly vulnerable to Amanda's strong personality. Growing up, I had been the peacemaker in a family with a volatile father and a mother who avoided conflict at all costs. I learned early to anticipate needs smooth over tensions and put my own desires last. These traits, which had protected me as a child, set the stage for a deeply unbalanced adult relationship. When Amanda mentioned she preferred the affluent West Hills neighborhood despite my hour-long commute to the office, I readily agreed to focus our house hunting there. When she dismissed my close college friends as too provincial for our new social circle, I gradually saw less of them. Each concession seemed small in the moment, reasonable even especially when weighed against Amanda's approval. The most significant sacrifice came 3 years into our marriage, when my firm offered me a partnership opportunity in their innovative Chicago office. It was the kind of position I had dreamed about: creative freedom, cutting-edge projects, focusing on urban renewal, and a substantial salary increase. Amanda refused to consider moving. "My entire life is here, Winston. My family, my friends, my connections at the gallery. How could you even ask me to leave all that? Besides, Chicago is so industrial." Her dismissal left no room for discussion. I turned down the position, telling myself that marriage meant compromise. My boss was disappointed, but understanding, offering me a smaller promotion to stay. I accepted it, gratefully ignoring the knot of regret that formed whenever I saw the exciting Chicago projects featured in architecture magazines. Our fundamental approaches to life became increasingly evident over time. I was deliberate and thoughtful, considering all perspectives before making decisions. Amanda was decisive and status-conscious, prioritizing appearances and social standing. I found beauty in subtlety and function. She valued boldness and prestige. These differences might have complemented each other in a healthy relationship. Instead, they created a dynamic where my preferences were consistently overruled. For Amanda's 35th birthday, I spent weeks planning a surprise party at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city. I coordinated with her favorite friends, arranged for a string quartet to play her favorite classical pieces, and commissioned a local artist to create a sculpture reminiscent of the one from the night we met. The evening cost nearly 2 months of my salary, but I wanted everything to be perfect. When the night arrived, Amanda seemed pleased, initially graciously accepting compliments from guests. As the evening progressed, however, I noticed her smile tightening. Later at home, she finally shared her thoughts. "It was a lovely effort, Winston, but did you have to invite Jennifer? You know we have been on the outs lately, and the restaurant was so drafty near our table. The quartet played beautifully, but Beethoven rather than Mozart would have been more appropriate for the setting, do not you think?" Her critiques continued until I found myself apologizing for the party I had poured my heart into. Planning. This pattern repeated itself throughout our marriage. My efforts followed by her subtle or not-so-subtle disappointment, concluding with my apologies. I noticed how Amanda would sometimes exchange knowing glances with her friends when I spoke at dinner parties, or how she would rephrase my stories to make them more interesting. I heard her laugh at comments about Winston's quirks or Winston's latest project in a tone that contained more ridicule than affection. Each time I told myself I was being overly sensitive. The emotional labor I performed went largely unrecognized. Remembering her colleagues' spouses' names, selecting thoughtful gifts for her family, maintaining relationships with her friends, and anticipating her needs before she voiced them. When I occasionally tried to express how underappreciated I felt, the conversation inevitably twisted until I found myself apologizing for being needy or overly emotional. As our marriage progressed, I noticed my confidence eroding. I second-guessed decisions I would have made easily before worried about Amanda's reactions to even minor choices, and felt a persistent sense that I was somehow failing despite my best efforts. Still, I continued trying to be the husband I thought she wanted, believing that if I just found the right approach, I could finally earn the appreciation I craved. The annual Thanksgiving gathering at Amanda's parents' sprawling Tudor-style home in Lake Oswego was always an elaborate affair. This particular year marked our 7th together, and as usual, I arrived early to help with preparations. While Amanda caught up with her sister, I spent hours helping her mother arrange flower centerpieces, setting up extra tables in the sunroom, and carrying furniture to make space for the 20-plus guests. By mid-afternoon, the house was filled with Amanda's extended family, and their usual lively conversation. I moved between groups refilling wine glasses, engaging in polite discussion about politics and property values, and making sure everyone had what they needed. After serving dessert, I slipped outside for a moment of quiet on the back patio. The November air was crisp, a welcome relief from the overheated house. I had just settled onto a stone bench when I heard voices from the rose garden around the corner. Amanda's distinctive laugh rang out, followed by her sister Natalie's. Curious. I remained still, not intending to eavesdrop, until I heard my own name. Winston spent 3 hours making that cranberry relish from scratch, Amanda was saying. He was so proud of it, even though Mom always uses the canned stuff anyway. He really does try hard. Her cousin Diane replied, a note of sympathy in her voice. That is the problem, Amanda sighed. Winston is like a trained puppy, always eager to please, never quite getting it right. It is exhausting sometimes, having to manage someone who cannot please anyone, no matter how hard he tries. Their laughter felt like ice water in my veins. At least he makes good money, and does not complain much, Natalie added. James would have a fit if I asked him to spend the morning setting up tables with Mom. True, Amanda conceded. He is useful that way. Just do not ask him to pick a restaurant or decide on vacation plans. We would end up at some architectural monument, eating sandwiches. More laughter. I sat frozen, unable to move as their conversation drifted to other topics. My heart hammered so loudly, I feared they might hear it. The warm pie and coffee in my stomach turned to lead. The world I thought I knew had suddenly shifted, revealing an ugly truth beneath its surface. I managed to make my way to the guest bathroom, locking the door behind me. The face in the mirror looked unfamiliar, pale with a forced, pleasant expression that now seemed like a mask. Had I always looked this pathetic, this desperate for approval? Splashing cold water on my face, I forced myself to breathe deeply. In the quiet of that bathroom, memories resurfaced with new clarity, Amanda correcting my table setting in front of her friends, her exaggerated patience when I shared ideas for our home renovation. The way she often introduced me as Winston, he is an architect, as though my profession was my only noteworthy quality. When I finally emerged, I saw Amanda and her family through new eyes. The casual touches on my shoulder as they handed me empty plates to carry to the kitchen. The conversations that stopped abruptly when I approached. The indulgent smiles when I offered an opinion. Had they always viewed me with this mixture of utility and dismissal, The drive home was excruciating. Amanda chatted animatedly about her cousin's recent divorce and her aunt's medical issues, seemingly oblivious to my inner turmoil. I responded with minimal comments, my mind replaying her garden conversation on an endless loop. "You are quiet tonight," she finally noticed, as we turned onto our street. "Is it a headache? You always get them after Mom's events." "Just tired," I replied, unable to confront her yet. My thoughts were too raw, too unformed. That night I lay awake beside her sleeping form, revisiting our years together, with painful honesty. The signs had always been there. I had simply chosen not to see them. Around 3 a.m, restless and unable to sleep, I went downstairs to the kitchen. Amanda's phone sat on the counter charging. We knew each other's passcodes. There had never been secrets between us. Or so I thought. I hesitated only briefly before unlocking her phone. I told myself I needed confirmation that I had not misinterpreted what I had heard, that I was not overreacting. What I found was worse than I imagined. A text thread with her closest friends revealed months of mockery. They had a running joke about my latest home improvement disasters, though I had successfully renovated most of our house on weekends. There were comments about my sad attempt at planning our anniversary dinner at what I thought was her favorite restaurant. Worst of all was a group chat titled simply, "The Doormat Club," where Amanda and 5 of her friends apparently gathered to vent about their partners. My name appeared with alarming frequency, each mention a fresh cut. Winston insisted on helping with the fundraiser again. "Someone please give this man a hobby." And, "Another day, another Winston special." Asked where I wanted to go for dinner, then apologized when I did not like the restaurant. I set the phone down, a strange calm replacing my initial shock. The foundation of my marriage, which I had believed was built on mutual respect despite our differences, was revealed to be a sham. I had given everything to a relationship where I was at best a useful accessory and at worst an ongoing joke. As dawn broke over our carefully decorated living room filled with furniture and art chosen primarily to Amanda's taste, I made my decision. I would no longer bend myself trying to please someone who had already decided I was a disappointment. I would no longer sacrifice my dignity for crumbs of approval. Most importantly, I would reclaim the self I had gradually surrendered over 7 years of marriage. The transformation began the very next morning. When Amanda's alarm went off, I remained in bed rather than hurrying downstairs to start her coffee and prepare the yogurt parfait she preferred on weekdays. She came downstairs 30 minutes later, confusion evident on her face. "Is something wrong with the coffee maker?" she asked, finding the kitchen dark and unused. "Nothing is wrong with it," I replied calmly. "I just did not make coffee this morning." She stared at me as though I had announced I was moving to Mars. That small act of omission, not performing an unacknowledged service I had provided for years, was my first step toward reclaiming my autonomy. Later that week, I contacted my former boss about the Chicago position. Fortunately, the architect they had hired instead had recently departed for a teaching opportunity. After a promising phone conversation, I was offered a modified version of the original role contingent on my arrival within the month. When I informed Amanda of my decision over dinner, her fork clattered against her plate. "You cannot be serious," she said. "We discussed Chicago 3 years ago. The matter was settled." "No, you settled it," I corrected gently. "I never agreed it was the right decision. I just went along with what you wanted. I am not doing that anymore." Her expressions cycled rapidly through shock, anger, and disbelief. "What about my gallery connections, my family? You expect me to leave everything because you suddenly have career ambitions?" "I have always had career ambitions, Amanda. And no, I do not expect you to do anything. I am moving to Chicago in 3 weeks. You are welcome to join me, but I am going regardless." The conversation devolved from there. Accusations of selfishness, reminders of all she had done for me, and finally tears. In the past, her tears would have been my undoing. I would have backtracked, apologized, and abandoned my plans to restore peace. This time I simply listened, acknowledging her feelings, without accepting responsibility for them. Over the following days, I began systematically reclaiming other parts of myself. I reconnected with old college friends through emails and phone calls, including two who lived in Chicago. I dug out my hiking boots from the back of the closet and spent a Saturday exploring Forest Park trails, taking photographs of architectural details and natural formations, a hobby I had once loved and gradually abandoned. I set boundaries around my time and emotional availability. When Amanda's mother called asking me to help organize their family photo albums, since I was so good at that sort of thing, I politely declined. When Amanda expected me to attend her friend Melissa's gallery opening on the same evening I had planned to meet my old friend Scott, I went to see Scott instead. Amanda's reaction to these changes was increasingly frantic. Initially, she doubled down on criticism, pointing out how my sudden selfishness was affecting everyone around me. When that failed to sway me, she tried guilt. After everything we have built together, you are just walking away. Finally, she attempted to renegotiate. Maybe we could look at architectural firms here that offer more creative opportunities. 3 days before I was set to visit Chicago to look at apartments, Amanda confronted me directly. "What is happening, Winston? It is like I do not even know you anymore." It was time for complete honesty. "I overheard you at Thanksgiving," I said quietly, "in the garden with Natalie and Diane. I heard what you said about me, and then I saw your text messages. The ones where you and your friends laugh about the doormat." Her face paled. "You were spying on me." "No, I was sitting on the patio when you were talking. And yes, I looked at your phone after that. I needed to know if what I heard was an isolated incident or a pattern. Those were private conversations. And besides, we all vent about our partners sometimes. It does not mean anything. It meant something to me, Amanda. But honestly, it just confirmed what I should have recognized years ago. You do not respect me." "Maybe you never did. That is not fair," she protested. "We were just joking around. You are completely overreacting." I shook my head. "I understand perfectly. I just finally decided to believe what you have been showing me for years." That conversation marked a fundamental shift in our relationship dynamic. Amanda seemed genuinely shaken by my new resolve. When her usual tactics failed to work, she oscillated between anger and attempts at reconciliation. But something had broken that could not be repaired with apologies or promises to change. I began seeing a therapist to understand my people-pleasing tendencies and build healthier relationship patterns. Dr. Weber helped me recognize how my childhood role as family peacemaker had created deep-seated patterns that made me vulnerable to emotional exploitation. Each session strengthened my resolve to create boundaries and honor my own needs. As my departure date approached, other changes became visible. I stood straighter. I bought clothes that reflected my personal style, rather than what Amanda considered appropriate for an architect of my standing. I spoke more confidently, no longer filtering my thoughts through a screen of, "Will this please, Amanda?" Her parents noticed the change during an uncomfortable Sunday dinner 2 weeks before my move. Her father, initially dismissive of my career phase, began asking substantive questions about the Chicago position. Her mother, watching me decline to serve dessert so I could finish a work preparation, remarked that I seemed different somehow. Amanda made her final stand the night before I left. "I could come with you," she offered. "We could try it for 6 months. If it does not work out, we both come back." Looking at her, I recognized the proposal for what it was. Not a genuine compromise, but a delaying tactic, a way to maintain control while appearing flexible. 6 months ago, I would have gratefully accepted this crumb, convinced I could make her happy in Chicago if I just tried hard enough. "I need to do this on my own," I said gently. "I think we both need space to figure out what we really want." Her expression hardened. "If you leave tomorrow, do not expect me to be waiting when you realize you have made a mistake." It was meant to be an ultimatum. Instead, it felt like release. Chicago welcomed me with its brisk April wind and towering skylines. My temporary corporate apartment overlooked Lake Michigan, providing a stunning view that seemed to embody my new perspective. Expansive, unbounded, full of possibility. The job exceeded my expectations, with colleagues who valued my input and a firm culture that encouraged innovation rather than safe conformity. Initially, Amanda refused any contact beyond necessary logistical discussions through our lawyers. She declined my suggestion of a trial separation, pushing instead for immediate reconciliation on her terms or divorce. When it became clear I would not be rushing back apologetically to Portland, she shifted strategies, suggesting she visit to see my new life. 6 weeks after my move, she arrived in Chicago, visibly taken aback by my transformed appearance and confidence. I had lost weight, adopted a more contemporary hairstyle, and developed an ease in my own skin that numerous friends had commented on. We had dinner at a restaurant of my choosing, an architectural marvel housed in a converted industrial space. "You seem happy," she said, sounding almost accusatory. "I am," I replied honestly. "Happier than I have been in a long time." "And is there someone making you happy?" The question carried her old familiar tone, part entitlement, part manipulation. "I am making me happy, Amanda. That is the difference." Later that evening in my apartment, we had the most honest conversation of our marriage. Without anger or accusation, I explained how her constant criticism and behind-the-back mockery had gradually eroded not just our relationship, but my sense of self. She listened more attentively than ever before. "I never thought of it as disrespect," she said finally. "In my family, that kind of teasing was normal. My father does it to my mother all the time." "And how does your mother feel about it?" Amanda fell silent, perhaps seeing her parents' dynamic in a new light. "I did love you," she offered eventually. "In my way, I know I acknowledged. But I need more than that kind of love." We parted the next day with unexpected civility. Though painful, our conversation had created space for mutual understanding that had never existed in our marriage. 2 weeks later, Amanda called to say she would not contest the divorce and wished to proceed amicably. The divorce was finalized 4 months after my move to Chicago. We divided assets, fairly sold our Portland house, and went our separate ways with a minimum of drama. The last I heard, Amanda was dating a successful gallery owner who apparently shared her social aspirations and taste in modern art. 1 year into my Chicago life, I hardly recognized the man who had once organized his entire existence around earning approval that never came. My architectural work had flourished, resulting in a sustainable community center design that won regional recognition. I had built meaningful friendships with colleagues and reconnected with old friends. My apartment now reflected my own aesthetic: warm minimalism with touches of industrial elements and photography from my weekend explorations of the city. More importantly, I had learned to recognize the difference between genuine giving and self-erasure disguised as generosity. My therapist helped me see that true generosity comes from a place of wholeness and choice, not from fear of rejection or abandonment. Dating again after 7 years of marriage was initially terrifying. I found myself slipping into old patterns, anxiously monitoring for signs of disapproval and preemptively accommodating preferences that had not even been expressed. Gradually, though, I developed healthier relationship skills, stating my needs, directly accepting differences without seeing them as threats, and recognizing early warning signs of incompatibility. 8 months after my divorce, I met Elise at an architectural preservation fundraiser. An urban planner with a passion for community spaces, she approached me with questions about my community center design. Our conversation flowed easily, marked by mutual respect and genuine interest. Unlike my early interactions with Amanda, there was no underlying current of judgment or subtle power plays. Our relationship developed slowly and authentically. When conflicts arose, we addressed them directly, rather than through passive aggression or martyrdom. I found myself truly collaborating with a partner for the first time, rather than constantly adjusting myself to avoid disapproval. The contrast with my marriage was stark and illuminating. "You know what I appreciate most about you?" Elise said one evening as we cooked dinner together in my apartment. "You actually say what you think. So many people hide behind what they think others want to hear." Her comment made me realize how far I had come. The painful awakening that began with overhearing Amanda's cruel words had ultimately led to the most authentic version of myself. Looking back now, I recognize that my marriage to Amanda was not simply a case of incompatibility. It was a relationship built on a fundamental imbalance. My willingness to continuously accommodate paired with her expectation of that accommodation. My people-pleasing tendencies and her dismissive nature created a perfect storm of dysfunction that could only be resolved when one of us changed. The lesson was painful but necessary. True fulfillment comes not from pleasing others, but from living authentically and surrounding yourself with people who value the real you. I do not regret the years with Amanda despite the hurt they caused. They taught me the crucial difference between healthy compromise and unhealthy self-sacrifice, between being appreciated and being used. Have you ever had to stop pleasing others to start respecting yourself? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button to help others find it, and subscribe to hear more journeys of personal growth and self-discovery. Consider sharing this video with someone who might be struggling to set healthy boundaries in their own relationships. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that it is never too late to stand up for yourself and create a life built on genuine self-respect.